Are you really that naive about me, Jonathan? Scriptures praising and Lord. Are you really that naive about me, Jonathan?
So should I believe you are, even, Jean? You say I should not be that naive with you. Marianne also said that I was naive with her and I should not have trusted her. Why do you think that she went into your house?
Said something good about the Lord. Are you really that naive about me, Jonathan? Scriptures praising and worshiping Jehovah are all over the place in the Bible, especially songs. But it's the verses that describe all the evil in him. Those are the ones you want suppressed, aren't they? Just like the verses that describe King David as he was calling out to and worshiping his Lord God Leviathan. Certainly you've told people by now that Jehovah is also the...
Sorry, but it's not written in the Bible that David worshipped Leviathan as his god. And it's not true neither that I said that Leviathan is God. Leviathan is a creation, he's not God, and David did not worship Leviathan as his God. You started to make stuff up a lot lately. Seems you are desperate.
Dragon Leviathan, happy you too, and worshiping his Lord God Leviathan. David are the ones you want suppressed, aren't they? Just like the verses that describe King David as he was calling out to and worshiping his Lord God Leviathan. Certainly you've told people by now that Jehovah is also the dragon Leviathan, haven't you? The true Father...
Where do you get this? I never said this. And you are saying described as when you are making an interpretation of it. When you're talking about David describing as he worshipped how he described Leviathan to worship him as his god, you're saying it's describing it. You are making an interpretation, and I never said to anybody that Leviathan is the Lord.
Jehovah is also the dragon Leviathan, haven't you? And just like the verses that describe King David as he was calling out to and worshiping his Lord God Leviathan. Certainly you've told people by now that Jehovah is also the dragon Leviathan, haven't you?
Okay, you really got to show me where exactly you took that from. Where? Where did you take that from? If you make those type of claims about somebody, you need to be sure to have something to back it up. Where did you get this? You had to base it on something. What was it that I could have said that resembled anything close to this? Where did you get it from? You said surely by now you have...
And worshiping his Lord God Leviathan. Certainly you've told people by now that...
Certainly you've told people by now...
Jehovah is also the dragon Leviathan.
Jehovah is also the dragon Leviathan. Where did you get this from?
It's disappointing, Jonathan. Why would you say that I'm just making stuff up? I thought it was a pretty good question. Was the Lord God using Leviathan to be able to bring fire down from the heavens to kill people, or to light his sacrificial feasts? And then whenever I say that King David actually praised it or worshipped it, you'd calling me a liar for that as well, telling me to prove it, telling me to show the scriptures. I suppose I could do that for you. Yeah, we'll go to Revelation 12, verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And then go down to 12 and 13, and it says, Therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And when the dragon saw that he was cast out unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. So like verse 9 says, the great dragon, he's known as the serpent the devil, Satan. And so who was Leviathan then? Wasn't he the greatest creature that God basically created? And it said when he was cast out of heaven that he came down to earth with great wrath. Have you ever looked up the word wrath just to get a word count in the Bible? Why is the Lord God always so wrathful? He is the most wrathful thing that I know of in the Old Testament. Why? Was it because he was sent down with great wrath because he knew he only had a short time? Oh, and another thing that I just caught that I didn't write down or highlight it, but verse 10. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before God day and night. Now, who was the accuser of the brethren again? I mean, I'm not really trying to tie these together into what I'm bringing to you tonight about Leviathan, but I just thought it was very interesting. If we go to John 5:45, what does that say? Do not think that I will accuse you to the Father. There is one that accuseth you, even Moses, in whom ye trust. So Jesus says that he's not going to accuse, and there's only one that accuseth you. And you'll go back to Revelations again, and verse 10 says that, For the accuser of our brethren is cast down. Is that a coincidence? Just asking. So let's get back to Revelation 9, and that the dragon had been cast down. Now, what was the description of that dragon, do you think? If it was Leviathan, was there a description? And there was a description. Go to Job, the book of Job, and he's going to describe it. I'm actually just going to read the whole chapter, chapter 41, because it's a description of the Leviathan. It says, chapter 41, of God's great power in the Leviathan. Canst thou draw out Leviathan with an hook, or his tongue with a cord which thou lettest down? Canst thou put a hook into his nose, or bore his jaw through with a thorn? Will he make many supplications unto thee? Will he speak soft words unto thee? Will he make a covenant with thee? Wilt thou take him for a servant forever? Wilt thou play with him as with a bird? Or wilt thou bind him for thy maidens? Shall thy companions make a banquet of him? Shall they part him among the merchants? Canst thou fill his skin with barbed irons, or his head with fish spears? Lay thine hand upon him. Remember the battle. Do no more. Behold, the hope of him is in vain. Shall not one be cast down, even at the sight of him? No one is so fierce that dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand before me? Who hath prevented me that I should repay him? Whatsoever is under the whole heaven is mine. I will not conceal his parts, nor his power, nor his comely proportion. Who can discover the face of his garment, or who can come to him with his double bridle? Who can open the doors of his face? His teeth are terrible round about. His scales are his pride, shut up together as with close seal. One is so near to the other that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another. They stick together, that they cannot be sundered. By his neesings a light doth shine, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning lamps, and sparks of fire leap out. Out of his nostrils goeth smoke, as out of a seething pot or cauldron. His breath kindled coals, and a flame goeth out of his mouth. In his neck remaineth strength, and sorrow is turned into joy before him. The flakes of his flesh are joined together. They are firm in themselves. They cannot be moved. His heart is as firm as stone, yea, his heart is a piece of the nether millstone. When he raiseth up himself, the mighty are afraid. By reason of breakings they purify themselves. The sword of him that layeth at him cannot hold, the spear, the dart, nor the habergeon. He esteemeth iron as straw, and brass as rotten wood. The arrow cannot make him flee. Sling stones are turned with him into stubble. Darts are counted as stubble. He laugheth at the shaking of a spear. Sharp stones are under him. He spreadeth sharp points, things upon the mire. He maketh the deep to boil like a pot. He maketh the sea like a pot of ointment. He maketh a path to shine after him. One would think the deep to be hoary. Upon the earth there is not his like. Who is made without fear? He beholdeth all high things. He is a king over all the children of pride. Now, wasn't King David one of those children of pride? Didn't he get in trouble with the Lord and the Lord killed 70,000 people because David took a census? So he could be counted as one of the children of pride. And one of the things it says here is that Leviathan is the king over all the children of pride. So before I prove my point to you, Jonathan, I'm going to turn to Psalms 18. I'm going to read the first 6 verses, and I'm going to ask you, who is David worshiping? Who is David praising? Who is David calling upon? Let me read them.
Sorry, but it's not written in the Bible that David worshipped Leviathan as his god. And it's not true neither that I said that Leviathan is God. Leviathan is a creation, he's not God, and David did not worship Leviathan as his God. You started to make stuff up a lot lately. Seems you are desperate.
Psalms 18. David praiseth God for his manifold and marvelous blessings. To the chief musician, a psalm of David, the servant of the Lord, who spake unto the Lord the words of this song in the day that the Lord delivered him from the hand of all his enemies, and from the hand of Saul. And he said, I will love thee, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, and my fortress, and my deliverer, my God, my strength, in whom I will trust, my buckler, and the horn of my salvation, and my high tower. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy of being praised. So shall I be saved from mine enemies. The sorrows of death compassed me, and the floods of ungodly men made me afraid. The sorrows of hell compassed me about. The snares of death prevented me. In my distress I called upon the Lord, and cried unto my God. He heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry came before him, even to his ears. Okay, it's pretty plain there. Whenever you're looking at it, you see the circles. Oh Lord, Lord, my God, call upon the Lord. He is praising the Lord here. He is calling upon his Lord, which is Jehovah, correct? And it says that the Lord hears him. But the description of the attributes that happen next nowhere describes Jehovah. It describes Leviathan to a T. When's the last time you heard that Jehovah was spitting fires of coal out of his mouth or smoke out of his nostrils? Psalms 18:7. Then the earth shook and trembled. The foundations also of the hills moved and were shaken, because he was wroth. There went up a smoke out of his nostrils, and fire out of his mouth devoured. Coals were kindled by it. He bowed the heavens also, and came down, and darkness was under his feet. And he rode upon a cherub, and did fly. Yea, he did fly upon the wings of the wind. He made darkness his secret place. His pavilion round about him were dark waters and thick clouds of the skies. At the brightness that was before him, his thick clouds passed, hailstones and coals of fire. The Lord also thundered in the heavens, and the highest gave his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. Yea, he sent out his arrows and scattered them, and he shot out his lightnings and discomfited them. Then the channels of waters were seen, and the foundations of the world were discovered at thy rebuke. O Lord, at the blast of thy breath of thy nostrils he sent from above. He took me, he drew me out of many waters. He delivered me from my strong enemy, and from them which hated me, for they were too strong for me. They prevented me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my stay. So the Lord was his stay, and his Lord apparently had blasts of hot air and fire coming out of his mouth and nostrils.
Where do you get this? I never said this. And you are saying described as when you are making an interpretation of it. When you're talking about David describing as he worshipped how he described Leviathan to worship him as his god. You're saying it's describing it. You are making an interpretation, and I never said to anybody that Leviathan is the Lord.
And the other video that you put out, Jonathan, with that lady that was describing why why he would dwell in darkness and what that all meant, I guess I wasn't too surprised at all whenever she did not include any of these verses. You know, he bowed the heavens also and came down, and darkness was under his feet, and he rode upon a cherub. Wasn't Lucifer a cherub? Did Lucifer fall? Was Lucifer cast down to earth? Was Lucifer wroth? Did Lucifer become the Lord of the Old Testament? Did he become Jehovah? Certainly you've told people by now that Jehovah is also the dragon Leviathan, haven't you?
Okay, you really got to show me where exactly you took that from. Where? Where did you take that from?
He made darkness his secret place. His pavilion round about him were dark waters and thick clouds of the skies. At the brightness that was before him, his thick clouds passed, hailstones of coal of fire. The Lord also thundered in the heavens, and the highest gave his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. So we got the Lord and the highest up in the heavens, whipping down hailstones and coals of fire. That's in Psalms. That's written by King David. Now, whenever you go back to Job, what do we see as the attributes again? Out of his mouth go burning lamps, and sparks of fire leap out. Out of his nostrils goeth smoke, as out of a seething pot or cauldron. His breath kindleth coals, and a flame goeth out of his mouth. And if you compare the attributes to those in Psalms, and we know that he was, praising the Lord and praying to the Lord, but compare the attributes. Smoke out of his nostrils, fire out of his mouth devouring, then you have coals were kindled by it, which is the exact same attributes that you seen in Job, when it was Leviathan the dragon, not Leviathan the Lord God Jehovah, the Old Testament. And the very same accounting that we've seen in Psalms 18, it can be found in 2 Samuel 22. I do believe the whole chapter is just a copy and paste, so it's pretty much the same thing. Yeah, they felt the need to put it in there twice, so I'm going to read out the portion that I think's important, and I'm going to ask my question. Why is the Bible describing the Lord God, Jehovah, why is it describing him with all the attributes found on the Leviathan? Why is King David praying to something that has the attributes of the Leviathan, the fire-breathing dragon from the heavens that basically murders people? Why is the Lord God Jehovah being so closely described as the Leviathan? Is he the Leviathan, Jonathan? Does he use the Leviathan? Chapter 22:7. In my distress I called upon the Lord and cried to my God, and he did hear my voice out of his temple, and my cry did enter into his ears. Then the earth shook and trembled, the foundations of heaven moved and shook, because he was wroth. There went up a smoke out of his nostrils, and fire of his mouth devoured. Coals were kindled by it. He bowed the heavens also, and came down, and darkness was under his feet. And he rode upon a cherub, and did fly, and he was seen upon the wings of the wind. And he made darkness pavilions round about him, dark waters and thick clouds of the skies. Through the brightness before him were coals of fire kindled. The Lord thundered from the heaven, and the Most High uttered his voice. And he sent out arrows and scattered them, lightning and discomfited them. And the channels of the sea appeared, the foundations of the world were discovered, at the rebuking of the Lord, at the blast of the breath of his nostrils.
Sorry, but it's not written in the Bible that David worshipped Leviathan as his god. And it's not true neither that I said that Leviathan is God. Leviathan is a creation, he's not God, and David did not worship Leviathan as his God. You started to make stuff up a lot lately. Seems you are desperate.
And do you remember in Psalms 18, whenever I was looking at cherub, and I said that wasn't Lucifer a cherub? Because it says, and he rode upon a cherub, and did fly. Yea, he did fly upon the wings of the wind. And that kind of reminds me of Ezekiel 28, 14 through 16. Verse 14, Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of God. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created, till iniquity was found in thee. By the multitude of thy merchandise they have filled the midst of thee with violence, and thou hast sinned. Therefore I will cast thee as profane out of the mountain of God, and I will destroy thee, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. So there we have the covering cherub. So there we see the anointed covering cherub that everybody seems to come to the conclusion that it's Lucifer. But why couldn't it be a description of Jehovah? Because it sure was a description of Jehovah in 2 Samuel 22 and Psalms 18. And I'm having a little bit of a hard time coming to any different conclusion than he was praying to the Lord God. It says it right here, the Lord, my God. But who shows up? Leviathan showed up. In my distress I called upon the Lord and cried unto my God. He heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry came before him, even to his ears. So he's saying that it's the Lord God Jehovah that he was calling upon right there. But who shows up? Then the earth shook and trembled. The foundations also of the hills moved and were shaken, because he was wroth. And who was always wroth in the beginning of the Bible? The Lord God Jehovah. Then there went up a smoke out of his nostrils, and fire out of his mouth devoured. Coals were kindled by it. When have you ever heard of the Lord God of the Old Testament being described with smoke coming out of his mouth, or coals coming out of his mouth? Anything like that. When have you ever heard it? I haven't. And he created a beast called Leviathan that, describes this very thing. This very thing that we're seeing right here, that describes the attributes of the beast that was created by the Lord God Jehovah, called Leviathan. But for some reason, when the Lord God said he showed up, when King David was calling for him, he came as Leviathan. Why? And how? And then to finish it off in verse 15 by saying, the channels of water were seen, the foundations of the world were discovered at thy rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of thy nostrils. Now we're talking about a dragon with fire and smoke coming out of its nostrils. But then it says, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of thy nostrils. So that would be the Lord's nostrils. And the blast of breath was the fire and the smoke and the coals that kindled. How are all these attributes getting mixed up, Jonathan? Now, when you take everybody's attributes and you assign them to be a person from the Bible, it seems that you don't have any problem, finding out who they were. But whenever it comes to the Lord God, and he's got fire coming out of his mouth and smoke coming out of his nostrils, and you can't seem to put that characteristic together to say that Jehovah may be Leviathan? Or how could he be? How many Leviathans did he make? I only know of that one. Were there covert Leviathans made by the Lord God? I don't believe so. If so, maybe you could show me where that is. And worshiping his Lord God Leviathan. Certainly you've told people by now that Jehovah is also the dragon Leviathan.
Jehovah is also the dragon Leviathan. Where did you get this from?